Breaking down the Trojans here at the Voice of College Football. We got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles, so please join him and the rest of the crew there at SB Nation talking USC football. We're just about 7 weeks away of what we hope is going to be football across the nation. And, of course, in the Pac-12, the decision, much like the Big Ten, is to play conference games only. We'll see if the Pac-12 is going to tweak the current 9-game setup. Matt, how you doing today?
Going pretty good. I know typically around this time we're getting ready for media day and for the season to come up, but right now there's so much uncertainty with the season, especially as you mentioned, the Pac-12 going to a conference-only schedule and possibly delaying the season. Nobody knows what's going to happen or if we're even going to have football in the fall quite yet. So it's really interesting right now. There's a lot of interesting times right now.
Absolutely. All we can do is watch and report and go from there and do some speculation to a certain extent, but we won't do that concerning the roster. We'll go with as is. And Keaton Slovis running that Graham Harrell offense through 30 touchdowns and set a Pac-12 record with a 72% completion percentage in 2019. So let's start with Keaton Slovis. Your thoughts about his development, what he could possibly do better after a breakout big season as a freshman All-America, and also minus JT Daniels moving on, what that backup slot looks like.
Well, I think with Keenan, with Slovis, it's interesting to see him develop very quickly right before us. And he got better as the season went. And I think that was the most encouraging thing, is how much promise he has and how he matured going on. As the season was going, he did a much better job taking care of the ball. Wasn't throwing a lot of passes into coverage. He wasn't trying to force things. I mean, he just, as time went, he was getting better and better, and it showed, especially in the loss in the Holiday Bowl, where it kept the offense, where he was keeping the offense alive until he got hurt. He kept USC in that game until he was hurt, and that's where it got out of hand from there, is when he got injured. So I think this sophomore season, a lot of people are hoping that he don't have a sophomore slump, but you're already in the playbook. You're fine where you're at and all this stuff. You're in good position. You don't have much to worry about right there. And that's the biggest thing with Slovis, is that he's already in the playbook. He already is doing, he's already doing great things right now. And it's a matter of, with all those weapons that he have, he'll be in good shape. Now, with the backup situation, it's interesting because, as you mentioned, JT Daniels transferred to Georgia, where he'll be eligible to play right away. So now that leaves Matt Fink as the backup right now. As we assume, there's Matt Fink, who's the backup, and then there's Mo Hassan from Vanderbilt, who could also slide into that backup role as well. But it's a lot of uncertainty, because we saw what happened with Matt Fink when he was running the offense, and we don't know what to make of the grad transfer of Mo Hassan, the grad transfer coming out of Vanderbilt. We don't know what to make of him quite yet. So, again, it's a matter of watching that backup situation take place and take form. It's just a matter of wait and see and watch how everything plays out.
Let's look at the running backs. So you've got your top 6 rushers coming back, and you pretty much had a 4-man rotation to varying degrees in regards to ball carrying distribution, but 1,600 yards and 16 touchdowns out of those 4 guys. And again, the top 6 rushers are back.
Yeah, and it's good to have all that production and in the backfield. It will make life easier, especially for the running game. And we know the air raid is more of a pass type of deal. But when you have running backs, like when you have Vive Malapai, you have Keenan Christian, when you have I'm throwing out names here. Marquise Stepp. You have guys like that. Oh, and we can't forget about Stephen Carr. You have guys like that. Really, it makes it easy. It makes it easy for you to go, okay, we can go by committee, and you got to split all those carries. That's going to be interesting to how they split those carries, especially with Marquise Stepp, and seeing how he came into his own. I think he was averaging about 7.9 yards per carry. So that's very key when you have a guy like that who's getting that amount of carries. It's gonna be, you're gonna have to find a way to implement them into the offense, and to split those carries between them. So I think USC's in a good position. They have a good problem at running back. They have good depth at running back, but also keep in mind, you got to wonder how healthy these guys are going to be. Because how we got to this point was Carr was injured at a point in time, and then Malapai got hurt, and then Stepp got hurt. I think 3 running backs went down when they played Arizona, I believe, which led for Keenan Christian to step into that role. So now it boils down to who's going to be healthy enough. But if one goes down, you got another one that's ready to step up.
Yeah, so the wide receiver position as well has been the strength of this team for a few seasons now. And with Tyler Vaughn's back after 74 catches, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London's an up-and-comer as well. You're set at wide receiver. Your tight end production is mostly back as well. Looking good there.
Yeah, they are looking good at wide receiver and tight end. As mentioned, this is the best wide receiving group in the nation coming in. Tyler Vaughn and Amon-Ra St. Brown, it speaks for themselves right there. Drake London, how the way he came into his own this past season, played a huge role, and also was another wide receiver who stepped up and got better as the season went and found his way into a full-time role, into a starting role. But then you move into the 4th wide receiver spot, and you can go any way here. You have Brew Mccoy, who many is really looking forward to play this season. How is he going to step up? You have to think he's going to play a huge factor in this offense. Kyle Ford was another to keep an eye on, but he tore his ACL during workouts, so he's likely out for the season. Who knows if the season is delayed and they move into the springtime, then that buys more time for Ford. But you have Kyle Ford there. You have Jackson III, who's also still there. And don't forget that USC also have Minor McLean, who's also coming back from an ACL injury himself, from a knee injury himself. He'll be back, as well as their freshman, the freshman Gary Bryant. Gary Bryant. Gary Bryant, who's expected to play a huge role in this offense as well, and expected to see a good amount of playing time his freshman year. So they're loaded at the wide receiver position, and we could see them, rotate. And then at tight end went right back down again with Daniel Materbebe transferring out. He was expected to come back again with the pandemic hit, or we don't know what happened, what led to his transfer. It could be roster numbers or something like that. But now they have Follow, who can step up into that role as well as and be a starting tight end if they go that route.
So you got Slovis coming back off a tremendous freshman season. You got running backs and wide receivers galore. A plethora, probably the best in the Pac-12, if not the nation, at wide receiver in particular, and depth at running back. A lot of guys that with unfulfilled potential at this point. Okay, you need the offensive line. Are they going to allow the time and the space for those guys to do their thing?
The offensive line, I think, is the biggest question here, and that's because of when you lost Austin Jackson. You're losing Austin Jackson, who I believe who was a first rounder right there. So he was going in the draft either way. but you have Elijah Vera Tucker who's there. You still have him there. You still have guys who can step up, and you have guys who can step into that role at the offensive line. You have Dietrich, who's also there, who is also pretty decent at center. So they have guys who's coming back who can step in. You have Austin Voorhees there. You have guys who can step up. The matter is the question is, we all saw how the Holiday Bowl shaped out. We saw how that shaped out. It was a struggle to get protection for Slovis, especially when you have a first round defensive end right there beating up a first round offensive lineman. So can you keep Slovis protected for a good period of time? I think they will, because with the air raid, we saw it's a lot of snap, 1-2, get the ball out your hands. So it gives him time, or the ball be out of his hands. But in those situations where he has to wait and he has to look and he has to make a decision and read a defense, will they give him enough time? That's the biggest question. Will the offensive line provide enough holes for them to open up for the running game to go? That's also a question that needs to be answered. And typically we would have that answered by now with spring ball and then going in the fall camp. But with COVID again, and we have to keep bringing it up with COVID-19 in the situation, this is a question that's left unanswered, and that we have to wait and see some more to see how this plays out.
Folks, leave your comments in the comment section below. Your thoughts about USC's offense coming off 32 points per game last year and 455 yards of total offense per game, with Keaton Slovis coming off a 30-touchdown, 9-pick season in 2019. He should only get better as a sophomore. Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles SB Nation. Please like, comment, share the videos out there on social media, and subscribe right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Matt, we'll come back. We'll do the defense. Man, when I look at the defense and I look at individual players at all three levels, I'm impressed by individuals. But when you put it all together there in 2019, they had a few rough stretches, no doubt, but they've got 12 of their top 13 tacklers back. So all that experience, all that talent, they should be able to do something much better here in 2020.
Yeah, they should. I mean, they're going into a new scheme. They're going into a new offense with Todd Orlando coming in, running a 3-4, a 3-4 defense. Something so that was kind of similar to what to what was ran before when Pendergast was there, until he abandoned it and went to his outright 4-2-5 defense. But with Orlando, and a lot of people weren't keen on Todd Orlando and that hiring because of what happened at Texas. Now, different situation at Texas, injuries, this, that, and the third. But but he has a track record where if the first 2 years he's there, the defense improves. So people, a lot of fans are hoping for the same thing with Orlando. And not only that, they revamped the coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball. You have Vic Soto from Virginia, who's right now a popular guy with the fans and with the recruits. You bring in Craig Navier to coach the safeties, who was also at Texas with Orlando. You bring in Dante Williams, top recruiter in the Pac-12 out of Oregon. Bring him to USC, and you saw what he did with the Oregon cornerbacks too. Two of their corners were all Pac-12 first team. So he comes over from Oregon to USC. Just a complete revamp of the staff there. So they're hoping to put it together and to improve the defense that really desperately needed some fixing, to do. And they have the talent to do it. But can Orlando put this talent together to make a successful defense, to make a run at the Pac-12? That's what a lot of people want to know.
Yeah. So when I mentioned guys that just pop off either the stat sheet or more importantly, jump off the screen when I'm watching the games, this Talanga Hufanga, I don't know if I pronounced his name because it's been about 6 months since I've heard his name since we've talked and since the holiday break.
Talanoa Hufanga.
There it is. But I know that every time I watch USC play, that this guy's all over the place making plays. He's just an impressive athlete, all over the place. 90 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. But again, it's more about me watching the games and just seeing this guy flash on the screen. And of course, Drake Jackson up front is a tremendous player. I just got to think that when you throw all this, Elijah Griffin is a tremendous talent. That if you throw these guys together with a decent scheme, that you should be getting better results.
Yeah, and I mean it all depends on the scheme and what you're coaching and assignment. And with USC, that wasn't happening. I mean, they were doing good against the run. Don't get me wrong, they were doing fine against the run. It's just their issue is they tend to have breakdowns a lot. And a lot of that was on coaching. A lot of that was on another thing was they weren't physical, as you saw with Todd Orlando when he was talking about being physical, tackling, defensive days were tackling. You didn't hear that at USC through the last few years with, you've always heard that USC wasn't tackling in practice, and it showed in games. And so it's making those key stops right there. And then not only that, USC's defense never adjusted. They didn't adjust to certain situations. And that's where they got in trouble. You saw in the Holiday Bowl, that was the tipping scale right there. It's just they were getting gashed and there was no adjustments being made. And again, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the coaching to put them in the right spots, you're not going to get the results that you think that you should have. And that was USC.
Talking Trojans, we got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles on SB Nation, so we invite you to head on over there and check out their coverage of USC football. Got your punter back, you got your place kicker back. That should be in good shape. Any thoughts about the special teams? And the bottom line here, Matt, I would love to pin you down on, well, it could be a 9-game season. Let's say if they stick with the current conference season, and they've given up on the non-conference schedule. What you can expect from USC, a team that, despite losing 5 games overall last year, 7-2 in the Pac-12 South, and was that close to getting into the Pac-12 championship game.
It's going to be interesting to watch because, as you mentioned, right now, if they go conference only with no non-conference games, it's going to be 9 games. 10 if you count the Pac-12 championship game. And if you're trying to play the season as is, and that's the biggest question is, are they going to play the season as is? Because if they are, that means USC's first game will be against Stanford in Palo Alto, on the road at Stanford. And that will be in September. Now, if that's the case, USC realistically could do some good things. USC could actually improve. I think they could, I think honestly, there's, if anything, they could go throughout conference play with probably 1 loss. And we know that would probably boil down to Oregon. Now, at the same time, if there's no fans in Oregon, then that takes away a major element right there. So now that plays into the hands of USC, because if there's no fans at Oregon, if fans can't go in, then you've pretty much taken away most teams' ability right there. Between that and Arizona State's not going to be an easy one too. So they could get through conference probably with 1 loss, maybe 2. I would say 2 losses. And if that loss would come at the hands of probably Arizona State, who knows? Because USC tends to surprise people, and they tend to drop games that they're not supposed to drop, and they tend to win games that they're not supposed to win. So it's always, it's always something different. But
Yeah, of course, last year it was
Yeah,
that head-to-head win against Utah at the Coliseum that was so impressive, but that gives the team a 2-game advantage in the division, but they couldn't make it stand up, and Utah doesn't lose another game, and USC gets shut out of the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, and that was the case, but you know, that's the thing with USC is that you have to take care of business. That's the thing with anything. You got to take care of business first. You got to take care of your own business.
All right. So whether at the top of the college football world or back losing 7 games 2 years ago, we cover USC because they're relevant, they're important, and they're a brand name. And we got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles to help us break down the Trojans. Matt, we appreciate you stopping by.
No problem. Glad to be here.